Welcome to the Juice Box with Juice Springsteen, covering the week that was in professional wrestling. Everybody, and welcome to this week's edition of the Juice Box. I am Juice Springsteen here as we are just little under 2 weeks away from 2026. As always, you can follow me on Twitter at JuicySteen, at Juicy Wrestling Closet on Instagram. Subscribe to this show on YouTube at JuicySteen. Listen to the show on Spotify, Amazon Music, juicysteen.podbean.com, and Apple Podcasts via iTunes. If you listen to it on Apple Podcasts or on Spotify, leave a rating and review. Help the show grow as we move into 2026, the third year of the Juice Box. Actually, technically, yeah. Well, we did 2023 to 2024. This is actually going to be the fourth year? I don't know what the hell's going on. It started in 23, and we're here. We are almost 200 episodes, which is pretty insane. But, you know, all that withstanding, getting my years all mixed up, we are ready for another year here at the Juice Box. And this episode is going to be a little bit of a hodgepodge, as most episodes, normally are, outside of a focused predictions show or any of our other programming that we feature here on the Juice Box Weekly. But we will be kind of doing a recap of the year that was in some way. I mean, we're going to cover a little bit of 2025 in regards to the Juice Box and some other stuff just in general for wrestling in 2025. But we're also going to talk recent stuff. We're going to talk a little World's End preview, along with the updated C2 rankings, and, of course, some updates regarding John Cena's final match, which happened this past week, which a lot of people are talking about one way or another. So we will discuss that and some other news and notes before we conclude the year next week with World's End predictions. We will have one final show before the year ends, so that will be coming to your airwaves likely January 2nd. Or actually, no, not January 2nd. What am I saying? It'll be December 26th. That's when that will air because of the pay-per-view being on the 27th. So that'll be what we do next week to fully close out 2025, the AEW World's End predictions show. Let's talk all about this past week in wrestling. Then we'll transition to a little bit of what happened in 2025, and that's how this show will go, hoping it doesn't, drag too long, but we shall see. Normally, I am very long in the tooth when it comes to detail, which can be a good thing, and I am looking forward to kind of going over some highlights, reminiscing over some of my own highlights and collaborations that happened this year, and some aspirations for 2026, and that's how we'll close the show today. But let's start off with some AEW. We are, like I said, a week away from World's End. Right now, there are 6 matches set for that pay-per-view. We've got the Blue League winner versus the Gold League runner-up in the Continental Classic semifinal, and the Gold League winner versus the Blue League runner-up in the other semifinal, where the winners of those matches will take each other on in the finals of the Continental Classic for the AEW Continental Championship. And where we stand right now in the Continental Classic here in 2025, we have in the Blue League, Konosuke Takeshita with 7 points, Claudio Castagnoli with 7 points, Orange Cassidy, Jon Moxley with 6, Mascara Dorada 3, Roderick Strong with 0. In the Gold League, Jack Perry has 3 points. Okada, Kevin Knight, Kyle Fletcher, Speedball, and Pac all have 6 points. So there is a lot to still happen. We've got the Dynamite on 34th Street airing on Christmas Eve. Takeshita, Orange Cassidy, Roderick Strong, Mascara Dorada, Pac versus Jack Perry, Christmas Collision, which will be airing on the 25th on Christmas Day. We will have Orange Cassidy versus Jon Moxley, Takeshita versus Dorada, Claudio versus Roderick Strong, Speedball versus Okada, Pac versus Kevin Knight, Jack Perry versus Kyle Fletcher. So that's how we're going to close out the C2 in regards to regular, I guess, league play. And once we get the final leaders of the points, that's where we're going to end up with the World's End Final Four, including the final match, which takes place at Hoffman Estates at the Now Arena in Illinois. Looking forward to that pay-per-view. Love some December pay-per-views. Enjoy the end of the year, and we still kind of get some stuff going on in regards to wrestling that does matter. It's not just filler. And I referenced the other day on No Dirt, Just Dialogue that, I didn't want it to come off as a criticism, but I did reference tournament wrestling as mindless. And I think that can be looked at positively, where when the year gets, this part of the year is, it's my busiest time in my job and just family and the holidays, and it's crazy. So in regards to the pro wrestling I consume outside of, classic content, I'm like kind of cooked when it comes to, I gotta watch Raw, I gotta watch SmackDown, I gotta watch Dynamite, I gotta watch Collision and keep up with the stories and all these things. So to me, whenever it's tournament-based wrestling, there's no real need for a story, and I find it easier to consume, which I enjoy. I really do find that as a fun kind of alternative to your traditional story-based wrestling, and great wrestling is what AEW is founded on. It's where the best wrestle, so it makes sense. And I love it. So having the Continental Classic is a breath of fresh air here in December as a, in my mind, mindless, but in a good way, tournament. Additionally, on the World's End card, Chris Statlander will defend her AEW Women's World title against Jamie Hayter. The Babes of Wrath, the first ever AEW Women's Tag Champs, defend against Mercedes Moné and Athena. And in the AEW World title match, what was announced as a triple threat is now a 4-way match for the World Championship. Samoa Joe defends against Swerve Strickland, Hangman Adam Page, and after cashing in his guaranteed Casino Gauntlet Championship match that he won at All In, Texas, MJF is a part of this match, 4-person match for the world title. Not sure how that's going to go. We'll talk about that next week in the prediction show, of course, but I don't know how things went. Well, now we can get into Dynamite a little bit. This is kind of the main point I wanted to touch on, was this world title scenario where Joe, Swerve, and Hangman are cutting promos on each other and making their case, and then all of a sudden MJF shows up and pretty much buries is a tough term, but eviscerates all 3 of his opponents on the mic as he cashes in his contract. And I know there's a lot of concern that, well, was that the right way to go? Is there any way MJF loses this? Is that a bad thing to have that happen the entire time of MJF being like clearly the guy to, he gets the mic, no one gets a retort. He gets to just destroy them verbally, and like that's it, especially with like a week or so to go. So to me, it's it's an interesting scenario. I don't necessarily see it that way. I see MJF having an advantage coming in not having to have wrestled recently, having this guaranteed contract, and saying, hey, I'm going to come in, I'm going to win, trashing his opponents. He's the biggest heel in the company. That's what heels do. And I think it's more of the same with MJF. Whether that's a detriment, that's a whole other story we could spend some time on. But him as a heel in general, I feel like, lends itself to verbally burying your opponents and always coming off as a heel. And I don't think he has to win this championship just because he did that. I think that as a heel, you can lose this match, still bitch about stuff, find your way into another title match again sooner rather than later. So I think there's a lot of room left in that regard, regardless if MJF were to win this match or not. I'm on board with hoping and thinking that Samoa Joe should still be champion at the end of this show. But like I said, that's something we can touch on as we move forth into the World's End predictions next week here on the Juice Box. Some other AEW interesting things. So I brought up the C2, and I kind of described how I do enjoy what's going on there and how it's going to culminate with World's End. MJF, of course, is back. And one other note I'd like to bring up now, this is related to AEW, but it's also just, IWC and podcast related and end of the year awards related. And if you know what I'm about to discuss, then you know. If not, I'm here to educate you. As we all know, almost any publication will run an award show. Podcasts do the same thing. I was on the Wrestle Collective this past week for their end of the year award show. Shout out to those guys. It was wonderful. I got to present the award for Storyline of the Year, which was really cool. And, this is how I've been presenting it to people. The PWI 500 is a kayfabe-based list of, the 500 best wrestlers, but it's based off of success they've had in kayfabe, like in story, and it's, it's not really opinion-based. It's how they actually performed week to week, month to month, pay-per-view to pay-per-view, etc. Then you got, the Wrestling Observer newsletter, who they have their awards, but they're voted on by readers and subscribers of that newsletter. So sure, they might lean a certain way, but it still is just a group of people on this, like it's a very specific group of people to do these things. But it's not like everybody. Again, it's a select few. Sports Illustrated had a journalistic panel, and they went and they had the SI Wrestling Awards. And much like with PWI and Wrestling Observer and pretty much damn near every other award show or publication that does an awards, anything in that realm, when they release these, each year could be the same or somewhat different. Maybe a few, categories get swept by one company or one company looks better than the others. Either way, it's still all opinion-based. This year, Sports Illustrated, and among those is friend of the show, John Alba. The awards were listed as this. I will read every award that AEW won, which is pretty damn crazy. They won 10 awards. I'm not sure how many were all there, but AEW won Show of the Year, Double or Nothing 2025, which I disagree with. If any AEW show would have been the best, I think All in Texas was the best. And even so, I would have wagered that WWE's Evolution all women's show could have been the best show. I digress. Rivalry of the Year, Hangman versus Jon Moxley. I could get on board with that. Storyline of the Year, Hangman's redemption arc. I could get on board with that. Something similarly with the rivalry. They coincide. And if one's the best, why wouldn't the other be? Breakout Wrestler of the Year, Kyle Fletcher. I could somewhat agree with that. There's some folks in the WWE side I think you could look at as well. Best on the mic, Tony Storm. I almost definitely agree with that. Best in the ring, Will Ospreay. Hard to disagree with that. Tag Team of the Year, FTR. hard to disagree. The tag team wrestling is not as strong in WWE, and in AEW, FTR is the stalwarts of that division. Male Wrestler of the Year, Hangman Adam Page. I think you could have made some other, like him or not, I think you could have made a case for a Jey Uso or a Gunther, although they had some significant losses. So Hangman, I get it, and especially since he won the rivalry and storyline, it could all make sense that way. Female Wrestler of the Year, Mercedes Moné, I think that goes without saying. And then Promotion of the Year, AEW, I look at that as, well, look at all the other awards. If they're winning most of these awards, they should win Promotion of the Year. Well, a lot of folks, maybe not a lot of folks, but folks that have reach in this space, and it's more than just one, it really is, seemed to have a problem with the awards, going all to AEW, and how, maybe one person said, well, they got paid off, and it's just, all of that is asinine to me. I'm not here to criticize someone's opinion on how they feel about AEW, but to say or suggest without evidence that, a publication or what have you would be paid to give the awards to a certain company, or that they show a bias, is absurd. Like I said, it's asinine. I have a couple of thoughts on this. One, and this is no slight to SI or any of these awards, but when the SI awards came out last year, did you care? Probably not. Were you posting about what happened? Probably not. Because it's all AEW, mostly AEW that won. I think that's why you care. I think there's an underlying issue with AEW and those that don't like what happened with these awards more so than who the awards were given out by. And it's biased. They're shills. What are we doing? It's subjective. It's a certain amount of people. It's not that WWE was bad. It was AEW was just great in the certain pieces that they voted on. And a lot of them I could agree with. And that's just this year. Who knows in any given year? I would say that WWE in 2023 and 2024 were really, really hot at the top of their game, did a lot of great stuff. 2025, they had record gates, and they had the Cena retirement and the heel turn and a lot of good stuff. But overall, I thought the stories were kind of stale and things just didn't progress how I would have preferred. So I think WWE kind of was down in 2025 as compared to the previous 2 years. And in that same breath, I can say that I think AEW kind of gained some steam. They had their biggest United States show ever, North American show, all in Texas. I got to be at that show. It was incredible. It was the closest thing to a WrestleMania that I had ever been to live without it being WrestleMania or even being WWE. It was an incredible presentation, incredible production, and I'm hopeful that they can pull off something like that again in the United States in the future. They're going to go back to Wembley next year, and that's great, and I'm looking forward to that show. But to see a stadium show in the United States, all in, and to pull it off, to have the great culmination of a story alongside great matches, and you had Dustin Rhodes, and just so many things fell into place that I think that was a special show. And I think AEW, just as a whole, throughout the year, did a lot of great things. So if it were me, I would be voting a lot of these same things in regards to the awards. Does that mean that I'm paid off by AEW? No. Does that mean I think AEW is better than WWE as a whole? No. Does that mean that WWE could never win another award ever and AEW is just the greatest thing ever and I'll only show bias to AEW? No. Yet some people would assume yes, yes, and yes, and, it's just asinine. Here's my other thing. Some of these people that are doing this are so much above this and further on intelligence than this to really buy or believe what they're even saying. It almost comes off as, dare I say, a work, to garner engagement, to garner interest, to get clicks. And that's fine too. You get the blue check marks, you get paid on Twitter, you get your YouTube views, whatever avenue you make money, if you do on these types of things, then that's good for you, and they are paying you, but AEW is not. So I just thought it was ridiculous, the whole thing, in regards to potentially suggesting that, it's a I hate AEW thing. That's what it is. It's not anything else. But John Alba took some heat, and I thought he did a great job of defending what he shouldn't need to defend, which is it's a publication. This is what their awards were. If you don't like them, either make your own award show or disagree with their opinion. I don't see how you have to say that they were paid by the company, and it just comes off as sour grapes and that they're mad, and I don't know. They don't like AEW, therefore, for whatever reason. Who knows if there's some underlying thing there, too, but it just comes off as ridiculous, and I just wanted to bring that up because that kind of drove the force this week amongst a lot of other topics in the pro wrestling space, and we're going to touch on the biggest one right now. John Cena's final match, Saturday night's main event. Hell of a show. The NXT stuff was fun. The Cena stuff was dramatic, intense. The match I thought was really, really good. And I loved the finish. I have seen a lot of people. This is what I'll tell you. I've seen a lot of divisiveness on the finish and the match as a whole, but no majority side. I really do think it's more 50-50 than I've seen in a long time on certain stories or moments that have happened in wrestling, where I've seen people that land on one side, where either Cena should have even won the match, or Cena should have passed out, or they should have given Cena some sort of speech. I disagree on the speech part the most, because I think he'll get his speech at the Hall of Fame. That's where you'll get your biggest speech. But I could see Cena winning the match being, a thing, like where I could make a case for that. I could also see a case for him passing out. Valiantly, his mantra was never give up, so he didn't give up. But I also thought that ultimately the way he lost, giving a subtle smile as he didn't give up, but he was letting go of the John Cena character that we knew and loved, the John Cena character that had dominated and did so much for 20 years. And, it was time for Cena to pass the torch and close the chapter and end his career by accepting his fate. And I thought it was a poetic way to finish the match by a subtle smile and the tap. I brought this up last week, all before the match even happened, that John Cena tapping out is the biggest accolade that a wrestler could get since The Undertaker's streak was broken at WrestleMania. And, that elevated Brock Lesnar, and Lesnar went on to win the world title and do a lot of great things for a lot of years and dominated. And I think Gunther is poised to have that same type of success. Now, he's been world champion. He's had the longest Intercontinental Championship reign. That being said, he was taken to the brink, 14-minute match against Pat McAfee. He lost. He submitted to Jey Uso at WrestleMania for the world title. And now that I will say this, that's behind him. That this is later in the year, and who knows if they had penned Gunther to win the Cena match that far in advance. Otherwise, they would have probably built him up better, you would think. But now that Gunther has won, you got to look ahead. And I think Gunther, who ended Goldberg's career, he ended Cena's career, he's got to keep moving up. Whether that necessarily means titles or not, I think he should win a title. He should win a world title sooner rather than later. I think he could retire AJ Styles. I think he could retire Brock Lesnar, which really would make things come full circle. He could even retire someone like Chris Jericho if he were to come back into the fold sooner than later. So I liked it. I liked the finish. I know a lot of fans booing Triple H as if Triple H was obviously the guy to make the call on the finish and who wins and whatever, but I think John Cena dictated how he was going to lose, if he was going to lose, and everything during the match. Master of his craft, student of the game. I think he absolutely got that, having this poetic, I'm going to accept my fate before the hero dies in this story is a great way to close the chapter for John Cena, but elevate Gunther's story to another level. The heat Gunther got after the match in the streets of Washington, D.C., in the arena on Monday Night Raw. That is why you have the match end how it ends. That's why Gunther wins by making Cena tap out. The fans were upset, but that's wrestling sometimes. Michael Cole, who had, as I predicted, a great performance in that match as commentator. The line that he cultivated for the finality of this match was, "Tonight, pro wrestling destroyed sports entertainment." So, in regards to that, that says it all. It truly says it all. And I just feel that it was a great moment. It was the right choice. And it's up to WWE to have Gunther go on a even bigger run now and win some more matches, continuously build and move forth towards another title reign. Maybe he wins the Rumble. I don't know what it is, but I think he's absolutely poised to take another step and win another world title. And if not that, stay hot. Maybe someone gets pissed off that he ended John Cena's career and, says, hey, try to end me. Try to do the same thing to me. And, maybe we get some side quests for Gunther in regards to that, where the title is not as important necessarily as ending a career or having a one-off big match. If Gunther doesn't go for a world title, give me Gunther versus Brock Lesnar at WrestleMania. Why not? Why the hell not? So ultimately, I enjoyed Cena's final match. I thought it was poetic. I thought it was again, it made so much sense for Cena's character, knowing and acknowledging that it was over for him, but the future of WWE is in good hands, and I firmly believe that's how Cena would have wanted it. So it is what it is. I didn't get to bring this up, but I just remembered that now here. In regards, we're going to go back a little bit. Going back to the Sports Illustrated AEW of it all, Tony Khan, after these awards were announced, put out on social media, and I wonder if they'll do it on screen. Congratulations to our wrestlers who got voted. 8 of our top stars, 10 total awards. Congratulations to the award winners and Team AEW on these hard-earned awards. And I totally agree. Lean into that. I have been referencing how bringing up PWI again, in 94, most popular wrestler of the year went to Sting. Tag team wrestlers of the year were the Nasty Boys. And I think just wrestler of the year overall, I want to say, was Hulk Hogan. And all those guys were WCW. Now, match of the year went to the WWF, and some other awards went to other promotions, including the WWF. But those 3 awards specifically, WCW decided to have a little, created press conference, awards ceremony, if you will. Actually had Bill Apter, legend, still, doing his thing. I got to meet him this year. We'll talk about 2025 in recap here to close the show in a moment. But got to meet Bill Apter. I had talked with him almost a decade ago in regards to some pro wrestling T-shirts, and that never materialized. But got to actually meet Bill Apter, and just a legend as the PWI, columnist and contributor and photographer, and at all these shows doing photography and all this stuff. But Bill Apter was at this little, award ceremony, what have you, handing out the award to Hogan and Sting and the Nasty Boys. And they aired that, footage at Starrcade 94. That's all I ask. Lean into it. If you won some awards, be proud that you won these awards. If you're happy that, we got selected, especially now in this age with social media where you can see there is discourse on that you won it and how dare they won it, or whatever the discourse may be, you can level up, you can, kind of stand on, hey, we won. Yeah, we did win. Oh, tough luck. We earned it. And that's, lean into it. Why not put your talent over? They've earned it. And it just works for everybody. You put over them, it puts over the magazines or whatever publication it may be who put over your wrestlers. And it's a win-win for all involved. So I was happy to see Tony Khan kind of lean into that as well. But back to closing out the Cena of it all. Like I said, I thought it was the right move. We got Royal Rumble the end of next month. We've got another Saturday Night's Main Event the week before that. So a lot going on in the WWE world here at the close of 2025. But man, I was telling people, with Cena's retirement and how everything went, I am just exhausted as a fan. I'm looking forward to kind of refreshing over the next few weeks, getting Saturday Night's Main Event again, getting the Royal Rumble, and getting right back into WrestleMania season. That's where, the best of the best. It's the best time to be a wrestling fan at that point. So looking forward to it, especially with Mania being in Vegas this year, or, next year. And the fact that the next year's WrestleMania is going to be in Saudi. They're going to want to pull out a lot of stops for this. It'll be the last North American WrestleMania until 2028. So it's, you got to do what you got to do in between now and then. So you put your best foot forward when it comes to WrestleMania 42. But yeah, the only other WWE note I wanted to bring up was Austin Theory got revealed as the masked man for the Vision storyline. Now, we don't know if he is, a part of the Vision or who he's working with, who he's aligning with, if there's other masked men. We don't know anything. We'll see what happens on Raw this week. But, I'm willing to give it a chance. I think Austin Theory's had some chances, but, he was the chosen one by Vince. They had that stupid golden egg thing. He beat Cena at WrestleMania, tagged with Grayson Waller. He's been up and down. This could be a serious step forward for his character, but it's up to Austin Theory to make that happen and solidify his spot at the top of the card if that's where he intends to be. The only other note I wanted to make here was I wanted to shout out Natalya, Natty Neidhart, who talked to the Toronto Sun after John Cena's final match and stated a great comparison. And the comparison of John Cena's final match was in regards to how he, wanted to go out in this way, going out on top. And, a lot of these wrestlers kind of either are forced into retirement or they never know when to leave. And much like Jerry Seinfeld, he wanted to go out on top whenever things were going great. So I'm going to give you the Natalya quote. Most people leave because they're forced into it. They're forced into retirement. They have to go. John, Cena, did what Jerry Seinfeld did. Jerry Seinfeld stopped doing his own show when he was the number one show on TV. I remember when I was a kid because I used to love Seinfeld. My mom and my sisters and I would always watch it together. It was something we did, and we all loved that show. I was devastated when it went off the air, but I was like, but they're the number one show on TV. And, Jerry said, yeah, we want to leave on top. We don't want to leave when the ratings tank. And so you see with John Cena, he did it on his terms. And damn it, did I not say this exact same comparison a couple of days before Cena's final match where, I referenced wrestlers now don't get the opportunity. Undertaker, got lucky with the Boneyard match, but before that, how many chances did he get? Ric Flair had matches well after that Shawn Michaels won. Hogan went to TNA and also had some matches. And it just never ends. Shawn Michaels came out of retirement for another match. And Cena is trying to stand on business and truthfully be a guy that never has another match, in ring proper as a pro wrestler. And I had said, look, just like Jerry Seinfeld, they offered him millions to do another season, season 10. And he said, no, I'd like to leave on top. And, execs from Castle Rock and NBC were like, well, don't you want to see how far you can take this show, especially when they haven't really lost quality over the last couple of seasons? And he said, I mean, that's great and all, but the only way to see how far we could go is you're going to have to find out that it's going to start going downhill first. And why do that? Why even chance that? Why not go out at the very top and have your fans wanting more? And looking back on it, I would have loved a season 10 of Seinfeld, but I also love, objectively, subjectively, I think I can say it without bias though. Even as a fan, I think it still represents well that there's no episodes or seasons of Seinfeld that I am not a fan of. Like the last two seasons that didn't have Larry David at the helm, I still enjoyed. I think there's a lot of funny stuff in there. I think Jerry did a great job. And, even though they got a little wacky and zany and what have you, I still enjoy both those seasons. There's really no episode of Seinfeld I don't like watching. And I don't think I could say that with a lot of other shows that I really love. I reference The Office a lot, where the last two seasons were just tough to get through. And, Michael Scott wasn't there, and it's just not the same. And, Friends went maybe 4 or 5 seasons they shouldn't have. And that's great. They made money. And, I mean, look at The Simpsons still going 30-plus years. Going out on top is admirable. And I think John Cena did what he wanted to do, and I think he did it the right way. And I was just happy to see Natalia thinking the same way. And it's also cool to see that she was a Seinfeld fan. So shout out to Natty Neidhart for that. Let's close out this show and the proper Juice Box episodes for the year with a little recap. Now, we will have, of course, World's End predictions next week, probably after Christmas. They will air. I don't know when we'll record it. We shall see. But that will be the last proper, last regular episode of the Juice Box of the year. But this is the last one that's just random info and stats and whatever stories are going on. But next week, you get the predictions. It's all AEW all the time next week. Like to recap, though, 2025. It's a good year. I think it was a good year for the Juice Box. It was a pretty good year for pro wrestling. John Cena turned heel. AAA got bought by WWE. You had JCW popping up and becoming a thing. TNA staking their claim. Joe Hendry making a huge deal. Joe Hendry, by the way, him and R-Truth and The Miz kind of having a fun segment on the Saturday Night's Main Event with John Cena. I just feel like a lot of pro wrestling Evolve got more prominent time on Tubi. And, TNA is going to go to AMC in 2026. Netflix and Raw had a crazy first year, and we're going to do it again. Braun Breaker, CM Punk, first Raw of the new year. So that's been a success. WWE's content library-wise, looking to go to YouTube. It's off of Peacock at the end of this year. I mean, a lot of crazy things kind of happened throughout the year. The rise of Dominic Mysterio, a lot of fun stuff over the course of the year for both companies. I think Dom, though, is probably one of the highlights, at least to me, especially since he did get intertwined in that Cena story. The heel turn by Cena was probably one of the biggest moments in wrestling history. Everything else that happened afterwards, not so much. But the final 3 or 4 matches that Cena had as a babyface, I think, kind of salvaged the end of the retirement run, and I'm glad that they pulled that off. But damn, just a lot of fun stuff. I had a hell of a year going to shows. I did the Bruno Forever show, independent show last March. Looking to do it again. I believe it's happening in April next year. I'll have some more info on that in the beginning months of 2026, so stay tuned to all my social media pages for that. I got to see TNA live back-to-back nights in the summer, which was really, really cool. Got to see some interesting TNA and NXT interactions, and Joe Hendry and the Hardys. It was a cool nostalgia trip. Matt Cardona, love seeing all those guys. I got to see an episode of Dynamite this year. I got to see an episode of Raw on Netflix this year. And I also got to go to 2 pay-per-views. I got to see AEW Dynasty, which was in Philadelphia this past year. Unfortunately, it's going to be in Vancouver. Unfortunately for me, I was hoping that Philly would get Dynasty potentially again, and I would make the trip out there. But who knows if Philly is going to get another pay-per-view in 2026. We'll see. But I quite enjoyed traveling out there for that pay-per-view. It was a fun show. And not only that, but I got to go to AEW All In Texas, which was a great, great time. And I'm gonna bring up some folks that I collaborated with and got to do some of these experiences with. But AEW All In Texas, I got to meet a lot of people, see a lot of people, mingle with a lot of folks. Really enjoy the community here of pro wrestling fans, podcasters, analysts, people in the business alike. And All In Texas was probably the highlight of that. Hanging out with Andrew Badalla, Blake Mitchamore. I saw John Alba there. I saw Sean Ross Sapp there. Ran into Sam Adonis out there. Adrian Hernandez was out there. Among other folks, I met All Elite Doug, who from Bill and Doug back on the YouTube days. Just a lot of cool guys and just folks in general that I got to hang out with and mingle with throughout the course of 2025. So those pay-per-views were definitely the highlight, which is interesting. 2022, I went to any shows. Starting in 2023, I've been to a pay-per-view at least one per year. 2023, I got to go to Payback in Pittsburgh. 2024, I did WrestleMania and SummerSlam, which were Cleveland and Philly, respectively, or Philly and Cleveland, respectively. And 2025, I did AEW, Dynasty in Philly, All In Texas and Dallas. So as we approach the 4th year of the Juice Box, we've completed 3 years as we, hit the 1st or 2nd week of January in 2026. Who knows what PLE or pay-per-view I could attend. We'll see what the schedule lends itself with. There's rumors of a PLE for WWE in Italy, so I doubt I'll be going to that. WrestleMania is in Vegas. I don't see myself going to that. Who knows, though? We'll see what AEW's pay-per-view schedule looks like. If something goes to Philly in either WWE or AEW, I would be inclined to do so. Maybe even Indianapolis, although I know WrestleMania is scheduled to be there in a few years, and I'm looking forward to absolutely making that trek to Indy for that show. But in addition to just those shows and me as a fan, I want to go over some of these collaborations and just overall interactions I've had throughout 2025 with the following people. If I leave someone out, I do apologize, but these are some of the folks, if not all of the folks, but not limited to, the folks that I worked with or worked with me on either the Juice Box or on their programs or collaboration between the 2, 3, 4, 6, a lot of different guys among us. So first of all, shout out to those who did a Sip Series interview with yours truly, Adrian Hernandez. Great guy. He's doing great work. MJF just kind of reposted something that got reference with him this past week. He got some big hits on that. But Adrian Hernandez, one of the best interviewers in the game. Love his work. He's done some interviews with Stone Cold Steve Austin, among a lot of other great talent in WWE and AEW. So he's always doing big and great things. Looking forward to seeing what he's got on the docket in 2026. Sam Adonis. Got to interview him leading up to the Bruno Forever show. And then I got to run into him at WrestleRex and, of course, at the Bruno Forever show. And then ran into him at StarCast in Dallas. So that was really, really cool. Catching up with him. Fellow Pittsburgh guy. One of the best guys on the indie scene. And hopefully we can have some more interactions. Maybe he can hop on the Juice Box one more time here in 2026. We'll see how things progress in regards to that. Conrad Thompson, I would be remiss if I didn't bring him up. Of course, he got featured in the SIP series, and I felt it was one of my favorite interviews I've done with him. I really enjoyed talking with him. He is such a fan of pro wrestling, and he's married into the Flair family. He's brought Tony Schiavone back into wrestling, and he's got so much wealth of knowledge and experiences that I had to get him on, and it was really cool to have him on. So shout out to Conrad Thompson. Again, any of these guys, who knows if I'll get another shot to talk with them in the future. Hopefully I do. So they're, again, of course, they're always welcome into the show. Let's get to some more. Of course, Andrew Baydala, I'd be remiss. Drew and Juice, no dirt, just dialogue. Any of the spaces we do on Twitter, I thoroughly enjoy. We had such a great time in Dallas, hanging out, just gallivanting throughout Dallas and Arlington. Shout out to Andrew for being the guy who got to take my photo with West Side Gun. He was quick on the draw to get that photo, and I'm super happy that he did, because that's arguably one of my biggest highlights of the year, was getting to meet West Side Gun. That was so sick. It was right after All In Texas. Hell of a show. So shout out to Drew, and looking forward to working with him even more in 2026. Josh Eisenberg, of course. I mean, this is, the George to my Jerry, the Jerry to his George, whichever you want to look at it. Friend since CSR, co-worker since then, Seinfeld aficionado the whole time. Great friends with Josh. He is primarily the big predictions guy, definitely within the WWE side of things. So much great analysis, and every time we get to talk pro wrestling, it's as if we never stop talking. And he's just a great guy. Looking forward to more stuff with him. We'll be talking Saturday night's main event predictions coming up later in the month of January. And then, of course, Royal Rumble will be the following week. So Josh Eisenberg, great guy. Looking forward to seeing him on Festivus next week. We had Justin LeBar on for the WrestleMania predictions. As always, he's a great guest, doing great things on Busted Open. So, can't say, enough great things about Justin. He's my mentor. I'm his protege. He kind of helped me get into this whole game at a higher level. I had done YouTube stuff for a while and dipped my toe in podcasting or what have you, but having him as, a guide and helping produce his radio show and then getting onto Chair Shot Reality really helped. And it kind of birthed the Juice Springsteen brand as you know it, as big or tiny as you may look at it. So shout out to him for any appearances he's made, and hopefully we can get him on for some more in 2026. Brian and Jay, Main Event Maniacs, did a lot of great work with them this year. It's been a bit since they've been on, but I know and I have heard that they will be on board for some Main Event Maniacs shows in the new year, 2026. We're going to see some more Main Event Maniacs. Those guys bring a lot of unique perspective. Some old school guys that I have a long history with, and I love hearing them recap, recount, recollect their viewings of certain things from the past and things they may never even saw before. And even me getting the chance to talk with them, cut it up about Super Brawl 3, stuff like that. So those guys are great. Looking forward to seeing what they got alongside yours truly for the Juice Box and Main Event Maniacs in 2026. And then, of course, I'm going to shout out Wrestling Nation, the group chat that houses not just me, Josh Cross, Josh Eisenberg, Matt Presto, Lucas Loper, those guys. Just always a good time getting to chat and cut up about wrestling in there as well, and discuss whatever's going on in the world of pro wrestling. And it's, sometimes there's a lot going on, sometimes there's nothing going on, but it's always nice seeing the text bubble pop up and get some hot takes in there. So shout out to those guys, and looking forward to hanging out with them. Donnie as well. I'd be remiss if I didn't mention Donnie. And we hung out at WWE night at the Pirates game. So it's more than just wrestling. These guys are friends, and I'd be remiss if I didn't mention these guys at all. And of course, Donnie and Josh Cross, the Triple Threat Theater crew. We'll see where 2026 leads us. Life is rough and gets in the way, and real life is more important than pro wrestling, as much as I hate to admit that. But we will reconnect and hopefully get some Triple Threat Theater potentially in 2026. So we'll see. And last but certainly not least, both the Shining Wizards guys and Wrestle Collective. Wrestle Collective, I've been working with them probably since the latter part of the summer. Met a couple of those guys in Dallas, Texas, after All In, which was really cool, and have learned to enjoy their company and chat with them online. Spaces, shows. I've been featured on their shows. I got to talk to them and of course, presented an award at their award show for the Wrestle Collective. And, of course, No Dirt, Just Dialogue with me, Andrew, and Jordan. All three of us enjoying that three-man booth for that program. Love doing that show. Any show we get to do live is a fun one. So the Wrestle Collective guys, check them out anywhere you can. Podcasts on YouTube, Wrestle Collective, Dub C Worldwide on Twitter. Great guys, a lot of diversity in what they talk about and just the different perspectives. There's a lot of people in that group, 6-7 different people. I love that. It is a collective. I really enjoy that type of perspective. So shout out to the Wrestle Collective. And last but certainly not least, Shining Wizards podcast. Man, can't say enough about these guys. They welcomed me into the fray, and I had a segment every 6 weeks for a while there. I was sharing the Apron Bump, who I'd be remiss to not talk about him as well. Apron Bump, Kyle. We've had some shows throughout 2025, and I think we'll definitely have some shows in 2026. He was gracious for having me on for Fall Brawl 97, among other shows. But in addition to that, he was on Shining Wizards as well. I know Kate, who's always on Fightful, she appeared on the Shining Wizards shows as well, and then they had Inside the Juice Box every 6 weeks, and I love being able to kind of bring my WCW angles to the fray, and that they knew they could count on me in regards to talking about WCW among other things. And damn, did I not see what was coming this past on December 8th when I was on that show. They kind of let me know, hey, next year we're not really doing the scheduled shows, but we'll have you on. We'll ask you to come on whenever we feel like, come on in and, give us some WCW insight or something that's related. We'll call on you when needed. So this will be like, the last scheduled appearance. And it was, incredible considering I got in there and had a great talk about Cena's final match and some WCW stuff, Rey Mysterio and the Nick Khan of it all. But then, of all things, they brought on none other than Ron Reese, formerly Reese of the Flock, Super Giant Ninja, or the Yeti, and got to chat with him. Me and the four other guys in Shining Wizards, plus Ron Reese, cut it up for about an hour and a half. Arguably one of my most favorite just conversations I've ever had with a pro wrestler, and just a unique guy to talk to who's really not in the pro wrestling business as much. I mean, he's done, conventions and what have you, and done some podcast appearances, but talking to him about the Yeti and Halloween Havoc 95 and World War III 95 and just some of the stuff as Reese as well. Getting to do that with the Shining Wizards guys was an incredible opportunity, and I'm looking forward to doing more with those guys in 2026. I really enjoy hanging out with them. They're all super nice to me, and I really respect what they do. And they've been at it for 14 years, I believe, and I appreciate that they even reached out with an olive branch towards me and gave me the platform, because I really do just love talking about pro wrestling, whether it's here on the Juice Box by myself or with some folks added on, and we have a group of them, or almost my personal favorite is getting featured on other shows. I love being able to talk or get asked questions about pro wrestling without necessarily having to produce the whole damn thing. I don't know if that comes off as lazy, but I produce this show and any other stuff I do. It's nice to kind of sit back and get the passenger seat and kind of go back and forth and pick up some stuff and ask questions, get asked questions. It's always nice to have that open forum as opposed to just being the host. So, love those guys at Shining Wizards, but I mean, I don't think I really missed anybody. If I did, I do apologize. But hanging out with all those guys, seeing a bunch of shows this year, it's been a hell of a year. And as we begin the 4th year, see, I got it right. It only took me an hour into realizing, well, we've done 3 full years as the Juice Box starting in 2023. So this will be the beginning of year 4. A lot to, look forward to. I don't know what pay-per-views or PLEs are going to line up necessarily, but I know I'm going to be shown on some shows. I know I'm going to feature some guys. I'm looking to get some more SIP series interviews for sure. And who knows what's going to happen. I'm looking forward to doing some spaces and some live shows, and anywhere I can try to get a voice in about pro wrestling and the current stuff, or especially the classic stuff where I really thrive. I can't wait. I really can't wait. 2026 should be a whole hell of a lot of fun. So enough of me rambling. Man, it almost an hour. I thought it was going to be a lot less than that, but wrong. So, man, 2025 kind of flew by. We got 2026 upcoming, Royal Rumble season, World's End to close out 2025. Who knows who will win the Rumble? Saturday night's main events heating up. Again, we got those shows, which is always great. I love having shows that aren't PLEs to kind of string things along that feel special. And AEW is still doing some great things as they progress into their 7th year. So a lot going on in pro wrestling. Looking forward to TNA and on AMC, the emergence of JCW, the continued work of GCW, and just pro wrestling as a whole, just continuously growing and expanding and getting bigger by the day. So that's really it for me, and we'll talk next week. We got World's End predictions, AEW. Looking forward to that. Should be a fun show. Should be a fun prediction show, and looking forward to the pay-per-view for sure. Saturday night pay-per-views, always a good time, but especially around the holidays, it's a lot of fun. So as always, on Twitter, at Juicy Steen, at Juicy Wrestling Closet on Instagram, at Juicy Steen on Twitter. Listen to the show on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, juicysteen.podbean.com. And if you do listen to it on Spotify or Apple Podcasts via iTunes, leave a rating and review. It helps the show grow. Shout out to Conrad, Sam Adonis, Adrian Hernandez, the Shining Wizards guys, Andrew Baydala, Main Event Maniacs, Brian and Jay, Wrestling Nation, Eisenberg, LeBar, and the Wrestle Collective, and everybody else for listening to the Juice Box in 2025. We'll see you next week for the World's End Predictions Show. I'm Juice Springsteen. Enjoy your weekend and Merry Christmas. We'll see you next week for the World's End Predictions AEW pay-per-view right here on the Juice Box. That was the Juice Box with Juice Springsteen. Make sure to subscribe to the Juice Box wherever you listen to podcasts.